Hello. Hey, Mother McCray. How you doing tonight? Hope y'all had a Merry Christmas. You and Overseer. Pray everyone's doing well. Hey, Miss Woods. Glad to see you're back in the States. Trav. I ain't gonna tell everybody what just took place today, but you and Jeff know what happened today. Glad to see you, brother. Trav and Jeff are my brothers from different mothers. Glad to see you. Anybody else before I start? Would like to say hello. I know it's a lot of games and stuff going on tonight, but and we had a game last night, but I need to share this and get this off of me. Anybody know that when God gives you an assignment, you only feel at peace when it's over? So anybody else, I had a few more people jump in. If you would like to say hello before I start, I just want you to know that before we start, what this is and what this is not. This is not, I'm not a prophet and don't claim to be. This is not a night of me saying what 2021 will be. At this moment, I don't know if it's wise for anybody to do that one. You better be spot on if you call out 2021 with what everything that we went through in 2020. This is me sharing a series of dreams that I've had the last couple months. And I finally went and researched those dreams and studied the Bible, and God gave me clarity on what those dreams meant. So this is not me giving a declaration over 2020. We'll save that for December 31st, and everybody else can walk in their gifts and be prophetic, but that's really not my thing. Hey, Blake, how you doing? Keisha Jackson, good to see you. Kat, Mother Kat, glad to see you. Haven't heard from you in a while. Clayton and Natasha. Trav, I won't comment, but the stakes are on you. Anybody else before we begin? I kind of gave an intro of what this is and what this is not. I want to share some dreams. And they kind of date back to what happened. God laid on my heart to pray for the school systems for the first 18 weeks of school. And I completed that task on December the 14th. And I was so happy that it was over. Let me be honest. When God gives you an assignment, sometimes the best part is when it's over. But it was over on December the 14th. December the 15th, I went to school, had a great day at school. Everything was going great. And I had a visit. And during that visit, I came to find out that I needed to be quarantined. I was exposed. So those are my co-workers. If you want to know why I wasn't at work the last couple days, I had been exposed. So I had to be quarantined. And that was the day of a big region game. So I couldn't coach that game. God knows best. And I immediately went to a hotel because I was not going to expose my family. So for the next 6 days, I stayed in Fairfield Inn in Douglas. So if you saw my car there, no, I wasn't creeping. My wife knew where I was. I was quarantined for the next 6 days. And I must be honest, when I first got into the room, I was questioning God. I'm like, God, I did your work. I prayed for the school for 18 weeks. And now the last day of school, this happened to me. And he quickly shut me up and said, Derrick, everybody's going to get some rain. Just because you are a Christian does not negate the fact of you getting rain in your life. And but he said that with being a Christian, you do have an insurance policy. Your insurance is in heaven. So the next time the enemy threatens you with death or anything like that, you need to tell the enemy, hey, don't threaten me with heaven. That gives me joy. Tell the devil next time, don't you threaten me with heaven. Because where I'm going when I die is a better place. So you're making death seem horrible, but I came back at the enemy every time he tried to tell me in that room, you got COVID, you're going to die. I say, hey, if I die, you're threatening me with heaven. I'll be in a much better place. Hey, Shanetta, glad to see you. Yep, we're going to get some rain. I feel sorry for your husband. But back to the story. And so I was there for 6 days. December the 15th was my first day. Look what happened. On December the 16th, I got a call from Macon my aunt was rushed to the hospital and it was looking deadly. So I said, oh God, what's going on? It's my mom's sister. So my uncle, which is my mom's brother, he take care of the whole family. So he went and he was saying about my aunt, giving us the outcome of what was going on. And the next day, he was rushed to the hospital for having a heart attack. So I'm quarantined, two of my family members back to back being rushed to the emergency room. And I'm not telling you this to have sympathy on me. I'm just telling you this to show how quick life can change. 1 minute I was getting prepared to celebrate my favorite holiday, Christmas. You know, I was doing the whole Boys to Men, you know, Let It Snow, you know, when they were dancing, we had the Let It Snow music playing. And we went from that to I'm quarantined and two family members deadly sick. And I'm like, God, why is this happening? And he wanted to let me know that the way that this happened to me is going to be the same way that your two dreams are going to transition. They're going to transition that quickly. Now, before I share the first dream, which is very simple, but we'll dig into it later, it's in regards to the church. And understand that the church is the foundation of everything that exists if you are a Christian. My first dream, very simple, the first night, I automatically was inside of a church. And to me, it represented the entire church. And it was a big church, and it was empty church. It was only a few people in there. But it was this person that was in there that was a threatening person. He was persecuting the people that was left. And the only way I could describe him was a threatening person that had threatened the other people out of the church. And it was very empty. The next night, the second night, I had a different dream in regards to the church. And in this dream, the church was full. It was vibrant. It was lively. And people was crying out to God and praying to God. And it was so lively that the church had an overflow room, an overfill room. And the overfill room was packed. And people was crying out to God. And I woke up. And I'm like, God, well, which one is it going to be? Is it going to be the empty church where we're being persecuted, or is it going to be the full church of revival? And he said it's going to be both. Don't forget what happened to you on December the 15th, and it's going to transition just that quickly. And he said, for the next few weeks, I need you to study those dreams in detail, and I'm going to point you to the right scriptures. So my first question, like everybody else during the pandemic, we know the Bible says that in the end times, there are going to be diseases and various things happening. So I asked God the same question that everybody else was asking. Is the world about to end? And he quickly took me to Thessalonians, 2 Thessalonians. Read that if you want to know if the world is going to end. 2 Thessalonians, it has 3 chapters. And Paul had just wrote the first letter to the Thessalonian church. And now he's writing a second letter because they had the question of, is the world going to end? So he wrote them a quick letter. And in chapter 1, if you read it, I'm going to paraphrase it, he first admonished them and encouraged them in the Lord. Just like a good teacher, if we sit down with you and your parents, the first thing we're going to do is tell you how great you and your kid is before we get to the meat of it. Then he began to tell them that the persecution that they're going through is making them fit for the kingdom. Everything that we're going through at this time is making us fit for the kingdom. So it's like he's working us out. And he went on to encourage them more and tell them about the end of when Jesus is going to appear with fire and with his angels, and is going to destroy the earth, and people are going to be ultimately separated from him. And we would praise him at that time and go on to be with the Lord. That was chapter 1. So in chapter 2, they asked the question, was the time near? Was it about to happen? And the answer to that is no. The world is not about to end. It's not over. But he did say that this was thousands of years ago. People were asking this question, and we're still asking it today. And he said no today as well. But we are getting closer. The next 2 things that he showed me is about to take place from the scripture and from 2 Thessalonians, the 2nd chapter. So I began to ask questions to God. And he took me back to the first church. And I began to look around the church, and I saw empty seats. And I saw people that I once knew that was older and seasoned, and they were there and they were vanished and they went away. And I looked at another seat. I said, I know them. They were strong in the Lord, and they died and they went away. And it's kind of like what's happening now. And I'm like, God, I already know this. Important people are dying during this pandemic. And he said it's going to keep happening. I said, well, God, that's great. The church was always designed for this to happen. That's why we were building up young people to take our place. And he said, exactly, you're moving in the right direction. He said, look further at the young people. You are a school teacher. What is coming down the pipeline as an educator, as an administrator, as a high school and middle school teacher? I began to think back over the things that we're fussing about all across this nation. And there's this one word I want you to think about that's coming down the pipeline is apathy. This next generation is a generation of apathy. Now, the Bible speaks of being slothful. That's when people are being slow to do things. But apathy is a whole different thing. Listen what apathy is. Apathy is a lack of interest, enthusiasm, or concern. So we're going from a place of where people were lazy and were slow to move to a place of where people do not care. And they have no concern for the church, and they don't have the same love that the older people had. So I was like, okay, God, I see apathy, and it's at an all-time high like never before. So the older people are going to be replaced with people that have apathy. And he was like, great. Now, he said this, listen to me. If you don't get nothing else from tonight, this is an important point that he gave me. He said, apathy is a prelude to apostasy. Let me say that again. Apathy is a prelude to apostasy. What apostasy is, if you read in 2 Thessalonians, the 2nd chapter, the apostasy is, let me read this verse. Let no one deceive you by any means, for the day will not come unless the falling away comes first. That's what apostasy is. It is going to be this great falling away from the church. And that's what I saw in my dream. And that's what I see in 2 Thessalonians, that he's telling us as believers, that's what's coming down the pipeline with children that have apathy. It's going to lead to apostasy. And that's where you see the missing seats in the church. So I began to look further back to the church. And it wasn't the fact that older people were leaving. Listen to me. It wasn't the fact that older people were dying. It was the fact that mature Christians were dying. Coming back to that in just a second. Also at the front of the first church was a persecuting person. It was an evil, threatening person where persecution had hit the church, and it increased so bad that only the strong people were left. And I've been in church for a long time. I've been in church, I'm 41, since I was a little kid, probably 25 years. I've seen 2 fights. I've seen somebody drop dead at the altar. I've seen a murderer come to church, sat on front row, attend church for months, and go shoot somebody in the back of the head like it was nothing. And God began to show me, you think that was something. You think what you've seen over your 41 years is something. Wait till you see this next level of persecution in the church. It's not going to be this cute church where you got diamond rings and the church is glamorized. It's going to come to a point to where it's going to be a struggle to show what you believe in, and it's going to be people designed to add persecution to the church. So what caused the great falling away? Number one thing, you have young people, listen at me. God said what caused apostasy? It was a lack of doctrine and depth in the scriptures. Hebrews 5:12. Instead of being teachers and people being on milk, this younger generation is on milk and not on meat. They stay stuck on milk and not on meat. Entertainment does not produce depth. We want kids to be happy. We do it in the school system. Smiling. If they're bored, we try to create things to help them learn. We put on this big production that take a lot of thought and energy, but the end results is usually surface understanding. Example, me and the kids, we watched this huge Christian production. It was a big Christian production. And at the end of the movie, I questioned them. I asked them, well, what did you learn? Dad, don't do drugs. So I began to challenge myself. I have a master's degree and a specialist degree. And the only thing that I pretty much got out of it was don't do drugs. It had no depth to it. A lot of entertainment, a lot of lights, and a lot of flashing, but no depth of knowledge. And that's what's happened to this generation. And God then tested me. He said, Derrick, I want you to go right now. You're a 25-year veteran Christian. I want you to go write a 3-page paper over Israel. So I started looking at it, trying to write it, and just think about it. If you were asked right now to write a 3-page paper over Israel, could you do it? You probably start off like me. Israel is God's chosen people. Jesus come down through that generation. And I began to write, we should pray for the people of Israel, but I could not give a lot of detailed, depth information over Israel. Why does this even matter, God? And he pointed me to the fact of the more depth you know about Israel, the more faith you're going to have when things start to happen. And when I started studying about Israel and what's taking place, there are things that are happening now prophetically that God prophesied in the Bible to Israel that has increased my faith. So as I began to prepare next year to teach on end times, because I'm going to do that a few times, I'm studying on Israel and my faith is being increased because things are happening. This is why we need depth. Because when persecution comes, your depth in seeing things in the Bible is going to keep you grounded in God. It's not going to be the entertainment. It's not going to be the lights. It does not produce depth. Are y'all with me? Israel, how much do you know about it? It's the foundation of what he's like, Derrick, you've been studying for 25 years and you don't have a big knowledge of the foundation of where your faith even started? What do you know? What's taking place? Do you know how wealth is coming to Israel at this moment, like I prophesied in the Bible? Do you know those facts about Israel? All right. So the truth will sustain us during this period. It's not the entertainment. And I'm going to pause here for a moment because I'm going to get to the second dream probably tomorrow. But let me go back over the first dream. First dream, an empty church, lack of young people. Stern persecution caused the church to be empty because that group of apathy did not have any depth in what they believed in. So it was easy for apostasy to take place. And if you don't believe in apostasy, then you don't believe in the Bible. Because 2 Thessalonians chapter 2 prophesies that we will go through a period of people falling away from the church. We should not be worried about next people that fell away from our local church. We should be concerned about people that have fallen away from God and have left the faith. Tomorrow, for 10 minutes, because I don't want to be on here that long tonight, I will talk about the second dream and the second part of the church, which will be first. It will be the period of revival and a full church and a vibrant and a growing church and an overfilled church where people are laying out at the altar praising God. But he began to show me during that period the things that the church should do. The things that the church should fix during that period, or they will be a church that lost their lampstand. Listen to me. There will be churches that will lose their lampstand. That was prophesied in Revelation. Lampstand meaning your influence. The light's going to be cut off if you don't make these corrections during the revival period. Think before I let you go. Moses, he was prophesied these great things. He was supposed to see the promised land, but he struck the rock, and God didn't tell him to strike the rock. And he did not see the promises that he was supposed to see because he didn't do it God's way. You can miss out on your blessings and on what you've been called to see if you don't do it God's way. Tomorrow, we will share quickly the church that will be in revival. And that's going to be a great time. People are going to be saved. People are going to be added to the church. The church is going to have a voice. Miracles are going to be performed that we're going to see. And the church needs to make a transition in several things. Love you. Thank you for so many of you joining tonight. Please share the video. This is not me. Anybody that know me, they know that this is not my personality. But this has weighed on me for weeks, and I feel better already. Tomorrow, we will share the revived church. Love you. Please share the video.